And if we can bring ownership of data back in the hands of people, that's more important than ever.
So I think that everything is not uncertain, but in uncertain times, infrastructure matters.
Today we trust it because AI is still evolving and Web3 based AI is not yet evolved to that stage.
Not everyone has access today. It's difficult to engage, it's difficult to understand, it's difficult to get it there.
Take a look at the entire blockchain ecosystem is through an agent-to-agent communication.
What excites you about the infrastructure layer, especially as it pertains to Filecoin and now AI? Because you can't do one without the other. Good. We're going to get right into it. After meeting a couple of new friends and knowing a couple from the past, we have a stellar lineup. I know everybody says that, but all I can say is look up these good companies and what they're doing, and you'll quickly understand. There's a lot of knowledge to be had here. We're going to keep on topic. I ask we keep it, concise, fast, so we can go through a bunch of topics, and hopefully it'll benefit you guys out there. Just a quick intro from everybody would benefit the group, but my name is Kevin Soltani. From GIMA Group, Los Angeles and Dubai. I've been here for about 9 years in Dubai. Alternative asset investors and consultants, mainly focused on blockchain, gaming, and esports. And we love all things DeFi and at the intersection of AI and blockchain.
Arben Kane here with Incentiv, co-founder. Incentiv is basically a new value chain that focuses on simplicity, and it focuses on actually contributing the value to all its stakeholders equally across the whole chain. We launched our testnet, and we're going for mainnet in 2.5 months.
Hi, my name is Clara. Tsao. I'm the founding officer of the Filecoin Foundation. Filecoin, if those that don't know, is the world's largest decentralized storage platform. We have over 3,000 data centers all around the world run by entrepreneurs, and we believe that data is going to be the most important asset for the future. And so we really want to make sure that ownership in data really belongs in the hands of people, not major monopolies.
Hi, I'm Yusuf Goolamabbas. I'm the Chief Knowledge Officer at Animoca Brands. Animoca Brands is based in Hong Kong, and our mission is to deliver true digital ownership, property rights via tokenization and blockchain. We deliver this via our incubated in-house projects such as the Sandbox, Mochaverse, and Chess. We also have made over 500 investments in many organizations, Polygon, OpenSea, Aptos, and we also have an advisory business, and we're working with the Hong Kong government on the Hong Kong dollar denominated stablecoin.
Hello everyone, my name is Mauricio Correa. I am the CEO of Colibit Technologies and also the founder of Intelchain. Intelchain is the first 5th generation blockchain powered by IA. We focus essentially in 2 stages. One, get free access to crypto world ecosystems and in gas and fees with different tools that we have inside. And secondly, we concentrate on vast ecosystem in our blockchain.
Hi everyone, thanks. My name is Alex Nascimento. Since 2017, I've been leading the blockchain educational efforts at UCLA back in Los Angeles. And we've been building some interesting AI bots with the data science master students. And I guess that's what we're here to discuss. Right, Kevin?
Yeah, so I'm going to get right into it. And this is a topic we talked about backstage, which is the only topic I want to hear from everybody. And then we'll go into more specific stuff. So we're going to keep it on topic. And I guess you can see collision course versus perfect scenario. So that's doom or gloom, right? That's very cliche, but let's be honest, that's what everybody's worried about, thinking on their minds. If you're a SME, it's definitely on your mind. And the bigger you are, the more advantages you have at the big kids table, as we say. But agents these days, AI agents, are now creating their own companies. They're working with other agents. They're creating their own projects. And if you take it on Web3, they're also driving their own token economies. They're dropping their own NFT projects. And then they're hiring other agents to work for them. They're working with each other, and they're even governing everything from A to Z in-house. They're making decisions on-chain together. Now, that is not only wild, but if that's not something you knew, you can quickly Google it and find many, many examples of these happening. Even Andreessen Horowitz, Mark Andreessen had this happen to him where he funded it, I believe, $50K, and it became this whole big thing on NFTs and art. Thoughts, ideas, scary, cool, I'll just go all the way down the line, but what are your thoughts about that specifically?
I think everything that's innovative is scary. I think crypto started with a scary element of us trying to innovate the financial system and making it decentralized. We're seeing the same dynamic now with AI. We're going to see basically a lot of crashes, a lot of dynamics going to disrupt the industries. And what I'm seeing is, even those AI agents are hiring humans on Fiverr to actually do value validation so that they are not robots, right? So if they actually understand what the friction points are better than us, and they're able to create the solutions, I think that in itself is a good sign. We're in a learning process, and I think it's a great thing to see that our solutions are now being utilized. And very soon, like for me, when I'm seeing AI avatars being built and identities and IPs, and they're being monetized through crypto, and now you can actually get fractions of their income, it's an indication of like we're evolving because all these APIs are now working with each other.
Humans are imperfect. They're more efficient and faster too. Clara?
Yeah, I wanted to start with today, 3 or 4 companies own most of the world's data. You can imagine the Facebooks, the Googles, the Amazons, right? And that's happening in the AI world too. In fact, most of the venture funding investment in the major AI companies that we use all today, from ChatGPT to Perplexity to Anthropic, they're funded majority from already major monopolies that own data. Our thesis is that AI is going to become 90% of the world's data generated on the web by the end of 2026. There's a number of studies that already shown just how much data AI and AI agents and all businesses are using AI today, and we want to be that storage layer for all the data that will be created. And that is so important because people may not actually be aware of how much data they're giving to different monopolies today until scandals like Cambridge Analytica, until failures like CrowdStrike that took down a lot of the IT systems. And if we can bring ownership of data back in the hands of people, that's more important than ever. And also, as we're thinking about the age of AI agents, making sure that's taking data from as many sources as possible. Today, the biggest fear around AI a lot of people have is how do you authenticate and show that the data is coming from a source that you can verify? And we can do that with Filecoin as a building block. AI is really powered by 2 things, compute and data. And then there's models and then agents on the very top. So we want to make sure that we are well equipped at every single layer. We announced around 10 different partnerships with major decentralized AI and AI companies last year, and we're excited to work with a lot more here in the Web3 and also in the traditional Web2 space.
Yusuf, for you, I'll add the gaming layer because of your company's background. What if they start creating better games than you guys can?
I think you're already seeing, most gaming companies, if they're not using AI for game development, vibe coding has basically become a phrase. Now everybody does some form of vibe coding. You've seen, I forget the name of the gentleman, like he created this flight simulator, started generating a fair bit of money, right? But for me, when I look at this question, AI cross Web3, right? And I live in Hong Kong. And some of you, if you've not visited Hong Kong, do visit us. We in Hong Kong are subjected to various geopolitics, so we don't get access to ChatGPT, Gemini, Claude, things everybody else takes for granted. Because, let's say, the companies are located in a country and that country decided like we should not get it. And today it's Hong Kong, tomorrow it could be your country. It could be France. It depends on the whim of that nation, right? So Web3, the decentralization ethos is important because do you trust, right? Today we trust it because AI is still evolving and Web3 based AI is not yet evolved to that stage, right? So I think it will merge. It's a question of how fast, the underlying infrastructure going to be there? Like, will power be at a certain capacity, right? Because to spin up a data center takes land, takes basically a humongous amount of power, which not every nation can basically spin up. I'll leave it to you, Mauricio.
Oh, thank you. Okay, this is a very topic ecosystem. If we're speaking about AI itself, and if we mix this in this case with blockchain, and if also we put it there an AI agent behind, that's exactly what we do in our blockchain. So we support there, we create our own ecosystem, and we're working on that side to create this communication between how you can increase your value, like in this case with the company, because we concentrate too much in vast ecosystem with our blockchain. So how you can increase that value on the blockchain side at the same time. So imagine this: if you are a huge company or a small one, the value to engage on that side, not just with the AI, because AI is around today, you can use whatever AI today, but also mixes with blockchain, is something that they give you a lot of power to increase your own value like company itself. So wherever we use this ecosystem, wherever we increase that value between, of course, they will have a lot of more knowledge with his own workers, with the users that they will have behind. So we engage this way. It's not easily. It's super difficult to work with two worlds today. That's AI and blockchain at the same time. We're working from 6 years to engage this, and we get it today. So our AI inside is called Sage, and that is the one that today is give us the tools, not just for us, for everyone, to engage this new world that is calling, AI blockchain. We can call it a crazy name behind, but yeah, it's like that.
It's interesting that you said about agents speaking with agents, right? Because at the university, we find that it's a lot easier to build agents that do very specific things on each chain, and then build a master agent that communicates with that, call it lieutenant agent, right? Because today most layer ones, and if you look around, they don't have the infrastructure necessary to build AI on it. We particularly are building on Azure. But yes, today, the only way, in our view, that you are able to take a look at the entire blockchain ecosystem is through an agent-to-agent communication.
You said like the umbrella, right? So an agent to agent, but then you're getting a master agent to essentially manage them, right? From a business standpoint, VCs are scared of the intersection of Web3 anything, blockchain anything, and now add in AI, which is a component out of their hands. So strategically, they like to invest in things they understand and that they can own themselves, which is their own umbrella of portfolio companies that maybe would act as the manager agent. But in this case, with blockchain, token economies, governance, new tokens, swaps, forks, it can go a whole nother way. So from a business standpoint, are you teaching your students, or are you working to kind of teach them what the VC language is? Because that's important. If we can't get funded at any level, what good are we as whatever we're building?
Yeah, no, that's a super interesting aspect, right? Because we speak with a lot of VCs and corporates that are looking at the space, and we're trying, right? If you go on stage and you say, yeah, I raise my hand and this is the way AI is going, you're probably a scammer because nobody knows. So we're testing.
A token on top of it.
Yeah, right. We're testing and we're trying to see like what works. Today we have a huge challenge because very, very few layer one blockchains have the necessary infrastructure or know where they're going. What they're trying to do is how can agents facilitate higher trading volume and a larger number of validators on their own chains. So if you have a project out there that you're looking at utilizing AI agents, that's what I would focus on. How can you bring more transactions to that specific chain? How can you bring more validators to that specific chain? That will give you an easier path. in my opinion.
I think it's important to just emphasize that DeepIn is really about us becoming the infrastructure layer as blockchain layer for this evolution that's happening. When I look at like DeepSeek and how big of a crash it created for the AI market in regards of like the valuations for NVIDIA, even NVIDIA went down because DeepSeek was a surprise, and China surprised us over and over again. And so I think that everything is now uncertain, but in uncertain times, infrastructure matters, and that's what we are.
I'm coming to you because that was such a segue. You read my mind because do you have something to add there? Because the next question I have on exactly DeepIn. No, please, if you got it.
So I'm going to come back to the earlier question about gaming, right? So gaming at times I feel bifurcates a lot of people, like, you know, because to a lot of games, particularly if you come from esports, right? If you're elderly like me, you don't have the hand-eye reflexes, right? But am I then supposed to be excluded out of the game? What if I could basically program an agent to play the games for me, right? And the agent was basically on-chain, right? On playing, you know, these games on-chain. Then you could say that one could argue that it expands the universe of potential players rather than making it niche. Then it's not about just like, okay, I'm younger, so I have faster hand-eye coordination. And whereas I'm older, okay, you're going to lose out in certain class of games, right? Who has the strategy? Who can basically program the agent to play the game on their behalf? You don't need to be always time consuming. You know, you can kind of free yourself to do other work and the game is being played and it's more of a utilizing your mind to play the game. Maybe that's going to be a future of gaming where somebody's playing on your behalf, games are being played continuously. You don't always have to be there.
So you segued me because we can't talk about AI, anything, forget about the Web3 or X blockchain, X whatever, without infrastructure. Well, enter decentralized physical infrastructures, DeepIn, which was the baby of last year, or at least every year we have 3 letters that come out from NFT to, I guess that wasn't 3 letters, but then we have RWAs and blah, blah. But DeepIn is something that even before Masari coined it 3-4 years ago has been being built by some genius people in the industry that are understanding infra. I got a plug because you guys invested in them, Functionland, which is a Filecoin baby from 4.5 years ago. They built these, you know, literal physical towers for data and storage, but now enter 2 new letters. DeepPay, whatever they call it, DeepIn with AI, right? So they removed the last part, infrastructure, and they added AI, which is still the infrastructure layer. What excites you about the infrastructure layer, especially as it pertains to Filecoin, and now AI? Because you can't do one without the other.
Yeah, I wanted to say, if I could, I would rename this panel because I think whenever people have to insert Web3 into something, it no longer becomes relevant to the bigger world of tech, right? If you guys remember 5G from many years ago, I've spent my career in emerging tech. And today, nobody thinks about IoT or 5G because it's just naturally integrated in everything we do. We have believed since a decade ago that infrastructure is the most important, and we use blockchain rails to do that, but it should be part of how we consume data every single day. And with DeepIn, we are one of the earliest DeepIn projects. Our white paper was written in 2013, made public in 2014, where we think that today the future of data is the ability to be able to cryptographically verify the source of data, how it's used, because what Yusuf just said earlier around agents playing games for you, at some point in time, companies want to make sure that they can tell what's a bot and what isn't. I've spent my whole career actually in the space of online disinformation, online misinformation. People are massively fearful of deepfakes. Artists are fearful that there's going to be content they create that is misused or misrepresented from other people. And I think that's the benefit of not just storage today as we know in the cloud, but the ability to have a decentralized storage network where you have the public accountability of being able to verify what has been changed to data over time. And that is going to make AI models, AI agents even more powerful when you have a nest of data that everyone can access, that they can say, I know this came from this particular source. An example of this is we're working with a great organization called Muckrock. It's a nonprofit in the US that actually hosts a lot of key documents from the US government that's made public. So today's web, as many know, isn't like entering a physical library. It's around who pays the most to get the first result on Google. And a source of data that a lot of AI agents build off of isn't even the version of the web that has the encyclopedia of everything. It's who pays the most, who contributes, and that's a lot of how information today is being built off of. With Theoric, which is a Web3 company that is doing decentralized AI agents, we've been able to look at how can we build agents that can take as much public data out there off of even data sets that aren't indexed properly on the web today, like Muckrock. And you can ask it, hey, how do you find CIA documents from this year to this year? You can think about archival data and this whole treasure nest of information that today we can't even normally access on Google or normal search because it hasn't been indexed or structured in the right way. Another example is we're one of the biggest supporters of a great nonprofit in San Francisco called Internet Archive. If you've ever used the Wayback Machine or had to look up information from the beginning of time of the internet, you can find it there. And a lot of people for years didn't realize that the information preserving on the web needs to be preserved because there's so much information that people rely on from the past. And so we're doing similar things. So we can build AI agents on top of the treasure trove of what has been the Internet Archive. That's a lot more powerful than what we can even see today on what's already out there for a lot of models on the web. So those are really important, but we believe that information is a public domain that everyone should equally access. And I really want to get around the narrative that blockchain needs to fit in AI because it's already part of it at the infrastructure level. Data is something that everyone consumes. We believe that using blockchain rails to store data is more secure and even more accessible than today centralized providers. And we want to take away this walled garden of monopolies owning most of people's data. Today, you don't even own your data. Imagine the data that you access on your phone. You're paying Apple $10 a month, $20 a month to be able to access data that you created and now giving to them. If you stop paying, it's impossible to migrate. And so those are the things that we think about. And in the age of AI, we want to make sure that people can fully access things they create and also have the ability to determine who gets access to it and avoid something like what happened with Cambridge Analytica, where a lot of users didn't even realize that they were having their data misused by major companies, which will happen in where AI is going today.
But if we stay on that path and say, earlier said, how do I tell that a robot or a bot is playing the game instead of a human being? But let's actually move forward. We talk about digital twins. What if I'm amplifying myself with agents and they are actually representatives of me? So I want 100 agents that are actually me playing games, doing financial transactions. So I'm training them on my lifestyle, on my personal values. And therefore, they're just amplifications of me in regards of basically I become 100 Arbens, and they're now out there amplifying myself in activity. I become more productive. I can play the games because I've trained them on my gaming behavior, my gaming strategies. I've improved them. So where do we store that? And how do we make sure that that in itself is being tracked? Because we're now evolving into this new phase where it's about being able to truly enable yourself. My biggest worry around AI is really that we have made hackers, scammers way more intelligent than they were before.
And faster.
And way faster, right? So now, but on the counter of that, it's okay, what if I use the same tools now to amplify myself? How do I now make sure that that gets stored in a database or in a storage solution, a DPIN strategy that I trust, because I don't want Amazon to own that. I don't want Google to own it. I don't want Apple to own it. I want a DPIN strategy because I don't want what happens to CrowdStrike, where all of a sudden whole networks are going down because you cannot rely on them. So I think we're talking about a new protocol evolution that's actually emerging right here.
I want to add another layer and come to you, Mauricio. What is the added factor of now IP and digital identity, going off of the twin, going off of this data, going off of our most sensitive passwords and things? For the longest time, Google promised us that the cloud or photos would be free. And then after 15 years, they changed their business models because they understood that they could make $15 a month because they own everything from A to Z. But now add in IP. Now add in digital identity, which is two of the best examples for them both to go on the blockchain. And security, AI, they can generate these things themselves. right? They can govern themselves and then swap and fork themselves and add a token economy, which speaks to Web3, right? That all of that is equally scary and opportunistic. But once it gets out of the hands and the management is out of our hands, when you again talk about IP and digital identity, what do?
Okay, it's very important to understand how you create this use case for the world. Okay, many companies have many ways how to solve the things. If you use today IA or if you use today blockchain, or if your mixes even together to create something special, how the data is going to be allocated outside is very important to understand, or very important how you will use it in the end. So if you have today a blockchain ecosystem, or you have today an IA that give you the opportunity to engage that way and bring that data, you're like a company or like a user, you will decide by yourself how you will use that data in your end. It's exactly what happened today in the ecosystem. Today, everyone can have access to IA. Any company, every person, every single man can have access to IA today. So, but it's not the same when you get on blockchain side. Not everyone have access today. It's difficult to engage. It's difficult to understand. It's difficult to get it there. That's the reason that IA is what IA is today. Everyone have access there. So today, have access to the data, have access how you use that data is imperative to have it there. And that way, how blockchain can change the way how that data can be stored. Of course, IA today can get a lot of value to the ecosystem if that data is stored in blockchain today. Because it's not mutable, it's there. Nobody can touch that. And nobody can use it in the way how they want to use today. Everyone make money with that. So data is very important. But also at the same time, it's critical to understand what kind of data you can use outside, or what kind of data you can storage, and nobody can see that. So all the world today is looking for something that the data be stored in a place, of course, that cannot be access for everyone. I want to have access there. I have an idea that they can have access there, but also at the same time, I need to understand how that data is going to be managed through the ecosystem. And if that data is not managed on the right way, and if you have a bad IA, let's say this, and that data will use it in a bad way too. So we have a lot of things here that we need to think about how we are going to arrange how that data we will manage now and from the future.
So the base layer, manipulation, is what people are the most worried about. And when we're talking about agents speaking with agents, and that's called manipulation at its finest level without human interaction. Alex, any thoughts on the IP and the digital ID side? Because again, if VCs are going to jump in at the cross-section of AI and Web3, and they're talking about multi-trillion-dollar opportunities because that's where their eyes at, and capital markets wanting to list those on stock exchanges, it's not happening right now. Let's be very honest. Because of the manipulation, because of they're worried, what's going to happen behind this? Is it going to get out of my hands and I can't, like you said earlier, manage the ultimate agent on top?
No, it's very interesting to think about that, right? And I don't think anyone in this room or in this industry has a clear answer. Certainly, you can think about like tokenizing agents and creating an economy around that. I think the cat is out of the bag. So it's going to be hard for you to pick the cat again. But one of the theories that we have debating is kind of like buying a gun, right? I can sell you a gun, but now you're responsible for what you do with that gun. You cannot say that Taurus or any other gun manufacturer is now going to have IP rights of everything that happens surrounding that weapon, or everything that's going to economically bad or good happen around that piece of a weaponizing device, right? So the closest thing that we can get to is that you're going to be able to tokenize agents and sell people that service, and then people will have to take ownership of that service. But now the IP rights of it, I think that's going to be a very challenging thing.
On the IP rights, we saw that ChatGPT implemented shortly after they did their image update a new IP restriction option where for just a day you were able to create a picture of anyone here, and it became a Simpsons character or a South Park character, and then all of a sudden a day later they said no, we have IP restrictions, right? So clearly they're implementing certain restrictions because they're getting inquiries quite quickly because the IP holders will actually attack them and saying, all right, we'll file a legal lawsuit against you because we still have that option.
And that's a very good point, right? But now, for example, we wrote a textbook that we utilize at UCLA, and we just did the 4th edition. When you publish it on Amazon today, you have to say if it was partially done with AI, with the help of AI, or fully done with AI, right? So what happens with the IP of the book we wrote? It's like gone.
And what happens when your book forks?
Exactly.
Because an an agent didn't
Wrote
have to
that,
pay,
helped me
half
write
of
it.
off
Yeah,
of yours.
exactly.
Gives you credit, writes your quotes, and in the back end you'll see your name. But then I didn't even know that was a thing, that they could do a full AI publish.
Well,
that's wild.
And you have to say on your Amazon profile, like at what extent.
And how many people are actually going to tell the truth, though, of 25 to 50% to 50 to 100? That's wild. I didn't even know that.
Well, if you want to be fair, you just do an airdrop to the prior authors.
Well,
the agent will do that for you.
How credible it can be that also on the way, no? So if you use an AI, your IP there, and you put it there on the market in one or the other way, if that made it by the AI, how credible can be that for us? How we can understood that point like human being? Okay, it's go like this, it's go like that, or how it's going to be in the end? That's a very important point also.
For the longest time, we had made in this country, made in this economy, made in this ecosystem. Where's made in AI? No, quite literally, there needs to be a tag. But how do you govern the made in AI tag on the back of your shirt, or proverbially speaking?
But, there's this accumulation economy we're just riding from, right? Where the top rich are accumulating the wealth, right? And the insider knowledge is based on blockchain, based on AI, and what we're actually going into with data centers and the abilities of everything that we actually, with fusion, we're going into an abundance economy. An abundance economy is really based back to Gutenberg, or what he said, which is copy. When you look it up, the meaning of copy means abundance, because he wanted abundance of knowledge. That's why he invented copy machines. We are now in abundance of economics.
It's very interesting you said that, because when you said abundance, my brain went to Larry Fink saying tokenize everything in the next 10 years, because that's also abundance, right? Tokenize every stock, bond, commodities, securities, and everything under the sun, because he can now make 100x the fee, right? So he's thinking at abundance of his economy, which runs the world, Larry, and, and so he's thinking, okay, if I can tokenize everything in the stock market, then I can fee everything under it 100x. Going back to something you said earlier that sparked what your good work does, but just in general, which is a topic for anybody who wants to jump in, is medical technology, medical records, medical everything, and the friction or lack of from our own blood test and data to what's back end, right? For the longest time, and still today, you don't own anything. You don't own any of your data. And in America, you have to call 5 different doctors and insurance companies. It's a little more democratized than EU and Shenzhen. But the reality is that where is it going to be hosted? Why isn't it already on the blockchain? It's a no-brainer. And forget about the tokenized aspect of it. I'm just talking about the, good things of blockchain, if we can say, which is not the currency side, right? The tech side, the data side. And I think that very soon, within the next 2 to 3 years, I hope, unless the big guys at the top kill it, we will have medical records be one of the first to fall. We've seen education and certifications and acknowledgements of that, not fall, but in a good way fall. And I think medical is next. You guys are at the forefront of that as far as data goes. But then when we're talking about immutability, anonymous, all the great things blockchain offers, which is cliche, faster, better, stronger. My mind goes immediately to medical, and it's a multi-trillion-dollar operation if we want to talk capitalistic about it for a second.
Yeah, absolutely. So we actually have been working with an amazing company based in Korea called Hippocrat to really look
What's
at...
the name?
Hippocrat.
Okay.
To look at healthcare data. So if you have been in the US or have dealt with the US healthcare system, which most of you guys probably have had some exposure, it is a huge mess. And the big challenge is also users can't own their data. I actually used to run a medical clinic in Los Angeles dealing with the homeless population. And that was the biggest challenge, where you have people who don't have identities that have to look for their medical records, or they're stuck in an ambulance and then holding up an ER room. And there's just so much ownership in who can access which record. There's a lot of legal reasons why. There's something in the US called HIPAA compliance, and that really makes it difficult for you to even access your blood test or your blood work or your appointment here and what the notes were. I think when we think about the beauty of data and blockchain to be able to secure who can have access to data, how you can access it, making sure you can also hide the identity of the user at the same time. I think one of the biggest transformations with AI is being able to disrupt the healthcare system, especially in places like the US or other ecosystems where you don't have necessarily access to your own medical records. And a lot of the medical research that is done in the US comes from other countries because of this exact rule. When we can have tons of medical data and be able to do population analysis on which symptoms, which diseases were happening where, and not necessarily reveal the identity of the users, we're going to make our medical systems a lot better. One of the other areas that a lot of organizations are using Filecoin today in is in academic research. When you do major studies, whether it's particle physics or in the biotech space, you want to make sure you're not necessarily using an altered piece of data that might be wrong. And you can go back to the original version or show how it's changed over time. And a lot of universities today are using Filecoin, from Stanford to MIT. We got to get UCLA on the map there. But when we spend millions, if not billions of dollars in research, and people have huge data sets, they don't want to pay $300,000 a month just to preserve, it's very challenging. And decentralized storage actually allows you to store at a fraction of the cost of major centralized storage providers, but also have that ability to look at changes over time. That's going to really help us accelerate drug discovery. It's going to help us accelerate what we think about in population health. And I think there's a huge ability for AI, especially decentralized AI, to be able to mask particular sensitive information and then be able to have even more themes that can really help researchers today.
A very important point regarding to that exactly is what kind of consensus you will use behind of that. What kind of consensus you will use, like company or in this case, what kind of consensus you will decide to use behind of this, how you take the decision, they make a decision behind. Consensus is very important also in blockchain side. So which choose you will do to make the best decision, and that AI will take from there. How we will do, how we will work, what the information we will save it. So consensus also is something that is very important in this.
I want to switch it, but keep it on-chain and on-chain assets. Yusuf, when we're talking about gaming and Web3 gaming, if we're going to compete with, why hasn't gaming 2.0 come in blockchain, crypto? Why is it that you guys owned 90% of it for the last 3-4 years in your wonderful investments and building of the Sky Mavis team, which was Axie Infinity? Why was it the only thing we got and the only thing that everybody always talks about? Because it hasn't been figured out. Either the Web2 gamers aren't building for the Web3 communities, or Web3 communities aren't building good enough games for the Web2 users. But when it comes to on-chain assets and all the things that AI might add in, it's a bit scary, because if Fortnite, Minecraft, Roblox, all of these guys decide to turn, they have the both sides. And they've figured out the microtransactions, and they figured out the microeconomies, and they can manage the AI. But a Web3 company that's building a game, trying to fight with the Web2 gamers, worrying about AI and immutability and the manipulation there scares me.
I think the simple answer, it's distribution lock, right? If you build a game with NFTs today, Apple will not let you distribute it. That's very simple, right? So Google is effectively the same thing, right? So when you don't have distribution and you kind of have to do workarounds, and classical web-based games are not, the web platform isn't evolved to that stage compared to native games, right? So you see Pixels, which is also an Animoca portfolio company, that is doing pretty well because it is built as a progressive web app, PWA. So it's not gated by any platform, right? Today, you cannot distribute a Web3 game on Steam. Steam's, if you read the fine print, it'll say, like, if your game has cryptocurrency, we'll reject it, right? Apple, typically similar, right? So I think, different governments are basically now going after Apple. You can see in particular the EU hammering down Apple and Google, and Tim Sweeney at Epic does, I think, a phenomenal amount of work, which very few people give him credit for. Like, to go against Apple's legal department which I think can basically wear down even governments, takes a lot of guts and a lot of money. So I think that's the basic reason. I feel as users get exposure to it and the web is going to improve, I think they're going to demand that why is my distribution vector blocking it, or governments will step in, or alternate distribution platforms will emerge. That's basically, today distribution blocks are basically the key, key thing holding back Web3 gaming.
Just to add to that, I don't think that Web3 is ready for adoption of gaming. So there are some games that have 250 million users. If those games go on Web3 and are on our chains, every L1, every chain will blow up. So I was just on another panel earlier, and Avalanche was like, "Oh, we are creating an L1 for every game." I'm like, "Wow, that's amazing," right? So we're just, we're still in the starting process, and we're evolving.
On that note, they can't handle the load. That's fact, case in point. You don't have to be a genius to know that. And great for Avalanche, great for all these other protocols. But the best protocol for gaming hasn't been built yet. That's my little prediction, right?
And they're saying openly, like, there was B3 was there, Avalanche too, and they're like, "Hey, let's work together, and we'll like cross liquidity, and you take some games, and I take some games." I'm like, "Oh, interesting. You guys don't even know how to deal with the bridges yet."
Right. The best the best game that I saw outside of the phenomenon of Axie, which we all have our thoughts there, but was something like DeFi Kingdoms, right? It was gamified DeFi, which was exciting. With the last couple minutes, I wanted to go down the line. Quick prediction, because this is a panel. We got to give something of a prediction to whether this recording gets played back and you were extremely right or extremely wrong. And everyone says in a year, but we need longer than that. I would say in 5 years, right? What excites you, or not, because this is a doom and gloom topic. What excites you the most? It could be specific to your industries or not. Or what are you most opportunistic? What's the opportunity cost here? Please.
So what excites me is like this new term that has evolved this year, which is quantum city. So it used to be called smart city, and quantum city is basically the layers of correlation between multiple sensor information, multiple layers coming in, and the correlation that happens through AI that then gets tokenized through validation layers to then create a quantum enable of situations that then has a truth factor of how strong the data is that it's relying on to make decisions. That is exciting me, and I'm seeing that evolution happening in real time.
Yeah, for me, I said this earlier, but the term I want you guys to walk away with is data is the most important asset. 20 years ago, if I throw your phone into a pool, you probably wouldn't care. But today, there is so much data that you rely on day to day that belong in the hands of monopolies in the cloud. And it's going to be so important, whether you're a content creator, whether you're an entrepreneur, for you to actually have access to your data. You're not locked out from accessing something that you truly care about. Or if you pass away, your family members can actually fully own your data. There are a lot of people that have a hard time accessing the emails and data of loved ones that have passed away, and that's a great example of not fully owning it. You have to convince someone else that that data from your family member is theirs. So just remember, data as an asset is the world's most important currency.
And any second now, we're going to get the release that 23andMe has filed Chapter 11 bankruptcy and sold your data to all the other bigwigs, which if you haven't, read into it.
I actually have a twin sister, and she has unfortunately given our genomic information to 23andMe.
Yeah,
so
me too, but I just deleted it yesterday, so you could do that too.
I let her know she needs to delete it because I don't even own that data.
What I'm excited about, and that's what Animoca's mission is to basically evangelize, true digital ownership. And people need to be aware that, and if you own your data, and if it's ideally you want to get compensated for its use, right? Today, for various reasons, we basically like, oh yeah, this is great, ChatGPT gave me the answer, but it effectively was trained on your data. You did not get a single dime of it, but they make money off it. Other people basically make it. I think over time, people will realize that, hey, why am I doing this for free? Like, why am I not getting compensated for it? And as AI, for various reasons, basically has impacted, overall jobs. Like you can see a certain amount of things. People will be way more demanding of, am I truly getting compensated for my time? And Web3 is a great coordination layer in order to basically drive, hey, you did this, therefore you're getting that in return. Like, how do you, Mauricio?
Yeah, thanks. what excites to us essentially is how this ecosystem is going to grow up in these next 10 years, 5 years. It's very important to understand that everything that we have today will change in the future. How the people, how the companies will be adapted to this is our labor right now, like they are in this industry, leader in the industry, how they will make it that they engage this, how they will grow up with us at the same time. So they're very exciting ecosystem right now because we are mixing many things, AI in this, blockchain on that. So of course, it's something that they are very important today because on the way how we manage the things, the way how we manage the information of everyone is a different way. It's the first time in the world that we do it like this. So they give us the freedom, and that's what we are looking for: freedom from companies, freedom for people to engage in a different way, how manage his own data. That's very important for us.
I think about that a lot, and what excites me the most is agentic economy and how we're all going to have agents that are going to represent us. And it's going to be really hard for you to figure out if it's Kevin on the phone or if it's Kevin's agent on the phone. And the environments and ecosystems that are going to build around that, right? And is it going to be a doom or a bloom? Then that remains to be seen.
I appreciate all your time. We went a little bit over, but I hope it was meaningful. I'll end it with the overlining thing that we've all echoed here, and it's really what the use case of blockchain was built for. I think we'd all agree that it's all about your ownership. It comes back to wanting to own it close to your chest, whether that's from the asset of a crypto all the way to your data, which is the most sensitive and also the most monetized of anything in our lives. That's what made Google Google. That's what's making NVIDIA money because of those two beautiful letters up there. And by the way, if NVIDIA flips tomorrow and tokenizes their product, that should be fun. But I appreciate your time. Do follow these great speakers and all the great companies here and catch us off stage. Thank you.